evening, ladies and gentlemen. How we doing tonight? Been interesting times here recently. Anyway, I just had a quick story I wanted to tell. I was thinking about this earlier today. I was talking to Jax about doing some writing, and we just kind of randomly reached into an old journal that I had. I've got boxes and boxes of them from back in the day. Used to do a lot of writing, and it happened to be back in 1999, a long time ago. I was a few weeks out from being married. In '99, I was 23 years old. Way too young to be thinking about getting married. I was just a dumbass kid. I lost a couple of really good friends that day. They died in an avalanche up in Juneau, Alaska. Matt and Kat, rest in peace. And on the same day, my fiance broke off our wedding, basically telling me if I didn't convert to being a Nazarene that things weren't going to work out. So what I turned out doing was pretty much just got on the road. I didn't know where I was going. Didn't have a clue. I went up to the 76 station. I filled up my tank. I bought a 6-pack of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. No, don't tell anybody about that. Don't drink and drive, people. Okay, this is a different time. And I'm getting on the on ramp to the interstate, and I see a guy. This is nighttime Portland, and this is like, it's a rainy night. Visibility's low, but I see a guy standing there, and I think, you know what, I could use some company. What the hell? I mean, I used to do this by myself all the time. I'd always pick up people on the side of the road if they were hitchhiking, because I always thought, hey, if that's me, I'd want somebody to pick me up. And so I picked the guy up, and he gets in, and I said, "How you doing, man?" And he had a thick Irish brogue accent. I said, "Thanks for picking me up." And I said, "I'm Mike. What's your name?" And he shakes my hand. And he says, "I'm Michael." And I said, well, "What's the chances of that? That's kind of weird." I said, "Well, hey, Michael, would you like a beer?" He says, "I'd love one." And so I reached in the back. I handed him a beer. I grabbed one for myself, and down the I-5 we go. And I said, "Where are you heading, man?" And he goes, "Well, I need to get to the airport in Sacramento." And I said, "Well, why are you going there?" He goes, "Well, that's where my ticket's out of." I said, where are you going?" He said, "Well, I'm going back home." I was like, "Okay, well, you're obviously Irish. What are you doing on the side of the road up here in Portland, Oregon, headed to Sacramento?" And he proceeded to tell me that his fiance had broken off their wedding, and that he had gotten on a flight and came to the United States, and he'd spent 2 years traveling between here and Canada, just hitchhiking around. He didn't have a solid job, no destination in mind. He was just kind of going on a walkabout, and he said it was time for him to go home, so he'd purchased a ticket, and he was just trying to get down to Sacramento so he could get on a plane, and he was going back home to Ireland after 2 years. And that he had just basically gotten rid of everything that he had and brought his backpack and spent 2 years just hitchhiking, and picked up jobs when he had to get some money, and just kind of figuring it all out. And he said he'd finally come to peace with everything, and then he was going back home. And I didn't know where I was going that night. I didn't have a clue. I was just going. I was going south on the I-5. I didn't have any destination in mind. I didn't have any, nothing. I was pretty much just resigned to, I was leaving it all behind. And so I drove him all the way from Portland to the Sacramento airport, and we talked all night. We had conversations about things, and it was kind of crazy because this guy, who I randomly picked up, whose name was the same as mine, who was from Ireland, and was on the end of his perhaps I don't know if he was on, he was just trying to maybe discover himself. He never really said, I asked him, he just said he just really just wanted to, he just had to get away, and that's what he needed to do. And so he was ready to go back home. And here I am, I'm on the start of the same fucking journey. The same thing. So he's finishing his. I'm starting my journey into whatever it. Here we are. But it was just it was a really, really crazy scenario just to have picked that guy up. And, he helped me out a lot. And on that night, I did need somebody to ride shotgun, and I did need somebody to talk to. It was just crazy that it was a guy that had gone through what I was just about to embark on that I picked up. It was just with the same name. And then I got to Sacramento, and I dropped him off, and I'm like, well, now where the hell do I go? And I just took a couple weeks and just drove around, and I ended up heading back to Boise. And when I got there's my roommate 5 watching the old Simpsons tapes that we had. And he's sitting there, and he's drinking Olympia and hanging out with my dad. He'd gone out looking for me. He didn't know, nobody knew where I was at. It was before cell phones or anything like that. I'd had one before, but at that point I didn't. And to show up there, have my best friend and my pop sitting there. It was good. It'd been a long journey, and to come rolling in, and my dad was out on the road looking for me because he didn't know where I was at. No one did. And so to know that somebody out there cared about me enough to actually just pick their shit up and take off from work and go out and try and find my goofy ass, it made me happy. It was cool. And from there, I ended up going back out to Oregon, and I ended up on Mount Hood. And so I was talking to Jax about writing in a journal today, and the one I picked up, it was dated 10/1/1999. And it was just a day I was on my lunch break. I used to always carry a journal in my backpack because I'd write in it every day. And it was just talking about, sitting up on top of the mountain, eating my cheese sandwich, or who knows what the hell I had. And usually lunch consisted of one of those old Sobeys and a pack of peanuts or whatever. But I'd always go up there to the top of the mountain during the summertime because there was never anybody going up at the top of that lift. And they had a lift shack with a USGS seismograph in it. And I used to like to just go in there and sit there and watch that seismograph, and you never realize how much seismic activity is going on a place like Mount Hood. But that needle was just poo, 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 up and down, up and down. So there's a lot of activity going on underground that you couldn't even feel, but the seismograph would pick it up. But it was kind of cool to look back and just read those thoughts from, a fall day in October of 1999, which is hard to believe that I'm sitting here now and looking back on that and thinking, damn, that was, 21 years ago. I still feel like the same dude, but I'm not. None of us are. But that's the cool thing. So I guess what I'm encouraging anybody to do out there is, if you think about it, put some pen to paper today. Just write down what you're thinking. Maybe try and do that once a day, because it's kind of cool to look back on those things after you've written them, and then you kind of step back into the mentality, the mode you were in. It takes you back in time to a different place, to a different person, to the different things that you were going through, and you can kind of look and see how you've metamorphosized, over the years, and it's kind of a cool thing to do. I'd highly recommend it, as a matter of fact. I'm going to try and do it more. I used to do it every day. I've started writing more since I started the podcast, obviously, because there's a lot of notes and stuff that I take down throughout my day to try and think about what it is that I want to speak with everybody about. But that's just kind of the story for today. Just kind of a weird thing. I always wondered what happened to that guy. So Michael from Ireland, if you're out there and by any weird circumstance you'd happen to hear this podcast, dude, I'd love to hear from you. I don't even know if the guy was from this world. Who knows? Maybe I imagined the whole thing. It was pretty bizarre, though. I mean, just the whole circumstance of, you know, you got a young man on the beginning of a journey, and then you've got another young man who's going back home from his. It was what I needed that night. You know, I mean, I did, because who knows where I'd have ended up or what would have happened. So it's just kind of one of those weird, you know, inexplicable circumstances in life. Anyway, just a little segment for y'all out there. Y'all be good to one another. Stay up. Peace out. Love y'all.